Hey everyone, I'm posting this from a throwaway account because I prefer to keep my main account free from this kind of stuff. So here's the deal. I'm a 28-year-old guy who, about a year ago, decided to take a leap and start my own business. I didn't do it alone though, I had a little help from a few friends from college. It's been quite a journey, but I'm happy to report that we've been doing really well. In fact, we're actually making a profit now, which feels amazing. But here's where things get interesting. A couple of days ago I heard from my parents. We're talking about the same parents who haven't really been in touch with me since I graduated from college. They're both 52 and to put it mildly, our relationship has been pretty strained. Out of the blue they reached out to me with a proposal. They want to know if I'd be open to the idea of them joining my business as partners. Apparently, they're interested in investing in what I've built. It's a lot to process, especially considering our rocky history. I decided against it. I didn't even bring it up with my friends because they all know about the difficult relationship I have with my parents. The thought of involving them in my business just didn't sit right with me at all. Throughout my childhood and growing up, my parents weren't exactly supportive. Instead, they often neglected me and made fun of me, which always struck me as odd. I was the kind of kid that many parents would usually be proud of. Both of my parents are quite successful in their careers. My dad is an airline pilot and my mom is an anesthesiologist. You could say I was raised in a household that valued high achievement, and naturally, I grew up to be very ambitious from a young age. Despite this, for reasons I've never fully understood, my parents never really showed any support for my endeavors. Instead, they would mock me for being what they considered too nerdy. This background is precisely why I felt it wasn't a good idea to mix my family dynamics with my business operations. My venture is something I've built with positivity and hard work, alongside friends who believe in me and what we're doing. Introducing my parents into this equation, considering our past, didn't seem like a move that would benefit anyone involved. My parents were well off financially, yet they hardly contributed to even my basic needs, acting out of what seemed like pure spite. For the longest time, I couldn't understand why they harbored such intense dislike towards me. It wasn't until a heart-to-heart with my aunt, my dad's younger sister, who's now 46, that I began to see the bigger picture. She was the one person who really got where I was coming from. When I was 16, she opened up about the real reason behind my parents' seemingly irrational behavior and disdain towards me. She believed I was mature enough to handle the truth. They blamed me for not achieving the level of success they had aspired to. Despite their considerable success, they never reached the fame they had hoped for, and astonishingly, they saw me as the reason. My aunt revealed that my parents felt the time, money, and effort spent on raising me was a missed opportunity. They believed that if they had directed those resources towards their careers instead, they would have been more successful in their fields. Their decision to have me was not born out of a genuine desire for parenthood, but rather due to familial pressure. They didn't actually want a child, but once they had me, they felt trapped and resorted to bullying and constantly belittling me as their way of coping. As a result, my childhood was marked by deprivation. Sure, the bills were paid and the basic necessities were covered, but I lacked any form of emotional support or encouragement from them. This neglect and their treatment of me as an unwanted obligation rather than a cherished family member left deep scars that influenced our relationship profoundly. My parents were never there for me, not for small things like homework or school projects, and certainly not for the big stuff like conflicts at school. If I ever expressed a desire for something that wasn't strictly necessary, they would dismiss me outright, or even worse, ridicule me. They often made fun of my appearance, which wasn't difficult for them since I was rather skinny and had a geeky look. They also didn't miss an opportunity to belittle my passion for computers, predicting my future as just another it guy, implying that investing in my interests and aspirations was a pointless endeavor. This emotional neglect was compounded by constant insults, which sadly I grew accustomed to during my upbringing. At the time, it somehow became my twisted norm. I internalized their disdain to mean there was something inherently wrong with me, which explained their lack of affection compared to how other parents treated their children. Looking back, it's clear how messed up the whole situation was. As I navigated my teenage years, I began to push back against their treatment, only to be met with harsh threats from my dad, who claimed he would throw me out on the streets if I didn't fall in line. In search of some solace, I turned to my aunt, the one family member who seemed to understand and care. She repeatedly offered to intervene on my behalf, even suggesting reporting them, but I always declined. The fear of the unknown, coupled with not wanting to impose on her or anyone else, kept me from accepting her help. I felt it was better to endure the situation at home, finding brief moments of relief in conversations with my aunt. Upon learning the root cause of my parents' behavior from my aunt, I made a silent vow to myself to cut ties with them completely. The realization that they blamed me for their unfulfilled ambitions was the final straw, cementing my decision to remove myself from their lives and start anew, free from their toxic influence. After finishing high school, my journey took a turn that was less about what I wanted and more about what my parents refused to provide. Despite their financial capabilities, they chose to send me to public school. I don't mean to come across as arrogant, but looking back, I feel like that decision didn't fully utilize my capabilities. This should have been a clear indication of their indifference towards my education and, frankly, towards me as a whole. Yet, I held on to some hope that they would support me when it mattered most. That hope was shattered when they coldly informed me that once high school was over and I turned 18, I would no longer have a place in their home unless I made something of myself. To add insult to injury, they also declared they wouldn't be contributing to my college tuition. This was the moment I reached my breaking point, confronting them with the belief in my bright future, backed by a history of academic excellence. Their response was both shocking and hurtful. They dismissed my potential and achievements, telling me not to overestimate my future prospects, even going as far as to mockingly suggest that my peak would be a lowly guy fixing computers, as if that was a position unworthy of respect. Their narrow-minded view failed to recognize that professionals possess a wealth of knowledge and skill, deserving of just as much respect as any other profession. However, trying to change their minds or argue for their financial support for college was futile. Facing their unwavering stance, I made the difficult decision to leave home a few weeks shy of my 18th birthday, seeking refuge with my aunt. It was there I began the arduous process of applying for colleges, aiming for scholarships to secure my education without their help. Despite continued attempts to convince my parents otherwise, they remained obstinate. Ultimately, the plan became to attend whichever college offered the most significant reduction in tuition, ensuring my future was still within my grasp, despite the lack of parental support. Fortuitously, I secured admission into a college that offered me an 80% scholarship, which also boasted a respectable computer science program. This was a development that left me quite content, and my aunt, who works in sales and earns a modest income, generously offered to cover the remaining tuition costs. Her financial situation might not have been as robust as my parents', placing her firmly in the middle class. Yet her willingness to support me made all the difference, especially since the scholarship significantly reduced my tuition fees. My time in college was structured around minimizing my return home. I preferred staying in my dorm, partly because my aunt's job required her to travel frequently. This arrangement suited me perfectly as I embarked on my college journey. Moving out of my parents' home marked the beginning of a significant improvement in my well-being. Freed from the constant anxiety and worry, I found myself happier and more open, which led to forming friendships that were once challenging for me to cultivate. It was through these new connections that I met the individuals who would later become not only my closest friends but also my business partners. Together, we established our own firm, which to our delight has been performing quite well. Initially, I assumed my parents would remain indifferent to my achievements, given their historical lack of interest. However, upon learning of my impending graduation and the honor of being named valedictorian, they expressed a desire to attend the ceremony. Their intentions were thwarted, as I had neither provided them with tickets nor extended an invitation, given our estranged relationship. After the ceremony, I was taken aback to find them waiting with my aunt, who appeared as displeased as I was, likely having endured their company post-graduation. What was supposed to be a celebration with my friends turned into 2 hours of contentious debate in my parents' hotel room. They expressed their frustration at being excluded from the graduation, contrasting their absence with my aunt's presence. Their complaints were ironic, considering their decision to effectively disown me at 18, refusing to contribute to my college expenses despite their ability to do so. This confrontation brought to the forefront the years of neglect, emotional turmoil, and mistreatment they had inflicted upon me throughout my life, casting a shadow over what should have been a day of pure celebration. I felt they didn't warrant an explanation for my actions, but to avoid a scene outside my college, I begrudgingly led them to their hotel where I eventually reached my boiling point. I made it clear to them that I wished to sever all ties, warning that any further attempts at contact would prompt me to seek a restraining order. Then, I left to join my friends, determined not to let my parents' presence overshadow my achievements. Following the confrontation, I cut off communication with them. My aunt later informed me that they were both upset and considering writing me out of their will, a threat that held no weight for me, as I had no expectations of inheritance from them. That marked the end of our interactions. Fast forward nearly 7 years, and out of nowhere they reached out again. Having obtained my number from my aunt under the pretense of wanting to apologize, a heads up she meant to give me but forgot due to her busy schedule, which I understood. However, their call lacked the apology I was led to expect, instead diving straight into a business proposition. They now saw value in associating with me, a stark contrast to their previous stance. Without hesitation, I declined their offer and proceeded to block their number, a decision I shared with my friends who fully supported me, knowing well the strain my parents had put on our family dynamics. What I didn't anticipate was their retaliatory move the next day, a bitter Facebook post tagging me and my friends. In it, they attempted to discredit my success, painting me not as the self-made individual I am, but falsely claiming my achievements were the result of daddy's money. This public attempt to undermine my credibility and the legitimacy of my business was a new low. Yet it only solidified my resolve to keep them out of my life for good. The Facebook post my parents made, claiming I was ungrateful for their supposed years of support, left me utterly shocked. I nearly reached out to confront them directly, but chose a different route instead. For years, I had archived videos from my teenage days, a period when I meticulously recorded my daily life to potentially illustrate their inadequate parenting in a legal setting if it ever came to that. These recordings showcased their dismissive and mocking behavior towards me, treating me as if I were the biggest burden on their lives. I had refrained from sharing these videos publicly, wishing to distance myself from any drama associated with them. However, their recent attempt to undermine me on social media prompted a change of heart. I decided to retaliate by sharing these videos, potentially crossing into controversial territory. Using my public Instagram account, I detailed my tumultuous history with my parents in lengthy captions and posted the videos to highlight their true colors. Following this, I informed my lawyer about the situation, who, unbeknownst to me, had already begun preparing a defamation lawsuit against my parents for their slanderous accusations. Next on my list was to consult with my business partners, as their reputations were implicated in the Facebook smear as well. The situation escalated quickly, with some of my relatives and my parents' acquaintances commenting on the post, applauding my so-called exposure, and expressing their reluctance to ever collaborate with our business. This move of mine, to publicly call out my parents, might be seen by some as an overstep, but it was a response to their public disparagement, and a step towards defending my integrity and that of my company. Given the situation, we certainly had a solid basis for legal action. I took the precaution of forwarding the incriminating screenshots to my attorney for safekeeping and made sure to inform my business partners about the unfolding events, to ensure they were fully aware of the situation. After setting these wheels in motion, I anticipated a call from my parents, perhaps even hoping for an apology. Surprisingly, they did reach out, but not with the remorse I expected. Instead, they used my aunt's phone to demand an apology from me, critiquing my decision to share those videos on a platform where they could be seen by a broader audience, given my substantial follower count. They argued that their Facebook rant was limited to their personal circles, whereas my Instagram post exposed them to a much wider audience, leading to a barrage of negative reactions, including hateful messages and even threats. They feared the repercussions could extend to their professional lives, especially if their employers stumbled upon the content, showcasing them in a negative light. In response, I stood my ground, asserting that they had brought this upon themselves before ending the call. Nevertheless, I decided to archive the posts and took a brief hiatus from my phone. Upon returning, I found an email from my parents. It contained a semblance of an apology for past grievances, but quickly shifted tone to criticize my actions. They labeled my response as egregious, highlighting the legal implications of sharing personal videos without their consent, which, according to them, opened the door for potential legal action against me as well. This development added another layer to our already complicated relationship, indicating that while they recognized some fault for the past, they were also prepared to contest the manner in which I chose to defend myself. It seems that my parents were hit with the defamation lawsuit, which led them to warn me about retracting it, hinting at exposing my supposed unethical behavior to negatively influence my business partners. The consensus is clear. There's no justifiable reason for us to withdraw the lawsuit. They firmly believe we've acted appropriately, in stark contrast to my parents, who have resorted to falsehoods and manipulation to tarnish my reputation. Despite their attempts to discredit me, I'm wrestling with feelings of guilt over proceeding with the lawsuit, especially after receiving their apology via email. I understand that pursuing legal action will likely cast a shadow over all involved due to the negative attention it garners. However, after much contemplation and discussion, particularly considering my business partners and the potential impact on our firm, I've decided to move forward with the lawsuit. This decision wasn't made in isolation. It considers the wider implications of my business and the well-being of my partners. Despite the relatively limited reach of my parents' original post, its intent was clear: to harm my reputation and, by extension, my business. The decision to sue for defamation feels justified, given their efforts to malign my character and jeopardize my professional achievements for their own satisfaction. Furthermore, the sincerity of their apology is questionable at best, seeming more like a strategic move to protect their own interests rather than a genuine expression of remorse. Their readiness to apologize only when faced with potential repercussions for their careers suggests their intentions weren't truly apologetic, but rather self-serving. Thus, proceeding with the lawsuit appears to be the most appropriate course of action under the circumstances. For much of my life, I've held back from confronting my parents, largely out of fear. Approaching my 30 seconds, I still find myself intimidated by the prospect of standing up to them, a testament to the deeply ingrained fear that has shaped my interactions with them. This realization didn't hit me until many of you in the comments highlighted the numerous occasions I missed to reveal the truth about my parents' behavior. This avoidance wasn't a conscious choice, but a response driven by fear of the potential fallout. However, I've come to understand that they no longer have power over me. I'm in control now. Their ability to affect my life is limited, which emboldens me to pursue legal action against them, regardless of their lukewarm apology. I'm committed to ensuring they face consequences for their actions. The time for me to play the benevolent part is over, especially when it concerns individuals who have shown nothing but cruelty. The environment I was raised in was far from what any child should experience, and now that I'm in a position to seek justice, I intend to seize that opportunity. No longer will I maintain the higher ground just for the sake of it, not when they continue to target me in their quest for attention. Their behavior is reprehensible, and I refuse to tolerate it any longer. In a recent update, my aunt reached out to inquire about my decision. Regarding my parents, I informed her that we are indeed moving forward with the lawsuit, marking a definitive step in addressing the wrongs of my past and holding them accountable for their actions. My aunt expressed her satisfaction with my decision to proceed with the lawsuit and shared her pride in me, which meant a lot. She also offered an apology for not being more involved during my childhood. However, I hold no resentment towards her. I understand that during those times she was navigating her own challenges, trying to establish her career, which made it difficult for her to provide the support I needed. Yet, when it truly mattered, she stepped in and made a significant difference in my life, for which I am deeply thankful. My family, particularly my grandparents, were utterly devoted to my parents, making it unlikely they would ever accept the truth about how I was treated. Had my aunt attempted to intervene through official channels like CPS, the outcomes could have been unpredictable, possibly landing me in foster care or a similar situation. I recognize she's not flawless, but I feel compelled to defend her against criticism, considering she was the sole family member who stood by me, offering whatever support she could. The value of her actions, right or wrong in the eyes of others, was immeasurable to me. Since the email exchange with my parents, there has been silence on their end, likely as they await my decision regarding the lawsuit. It's been 4 days, and we're moving towards mediation with a court-appointed mediator in hopes of reaching an out-of-court settlement before considering taking the matter to trial. The aim is not to exploit my parents' financial resources, they indeed have plenty, but to hold them accountable for their actions. The turmoil at their workplaces, following the public revelations, suggests that the repercussions of their actions are already unfolding. In navigating this situation, the priority remains clear: to seek justice for the wrongs committed, free of any guilt, understanding that the responsibility for these circumstances lies entirely with them. The backlash I received after sharing those videos, highlighting how my actions supposedly jeopardized their careers, was an eye-opening experience. The level of gaslighting and melodrama in their calls and emails was astonishing. Fortunately, I remained steadfast, not allowing their manipulative tactics to sway me, which would have been a disservice to myself. It's almost laughable how they attempted to draw parallels between our actions, as if my decision to share the truth was somehow equivalent, or even worse than their campaign of lies against me. Their efforts to tarnish my reputation were met with my straightforward response, showcasing their true behavior to the world. I'm seriously considering keeping those videos public post-mediation as a testament to their actions, ensuring their true characters are revealed for all to see. Recently, the court appointed a mediator for our case, and following this development, my parents reached out. Temporarily unblocking them facilitated this necessary dialogue, during which they inquired about the withdrawal of the lawsuit, under the impression that the situation was spiraling. I firmly informed them that I had no intention of backing down, which led to an explosive reaction. The call was a cacophony of anger and frustration, making it difficult to discern their exact words amid the chaos. When they called again, my father directly expressed his irritation, dismissing my actions as futile attempts at intimidation. I seized the moment to confront them with the full extent of my grievances, sparing no detail. It was a cathartic exchange, allowing me to vocalize years of pent-up feelings. Following this vehement declaration, I ended the call, refusing them the opportunity for rebuttal. Despite this closure, they persisted in their attempts to reach me, illustrating the depth of our unresolved tensions. This ongoing conflict, while challenging, has been a crucial step in asserting my autonomy and addressing the injustices of my upbringing. My parents reached out to my aunt, spinning a tale that I was taking legal action against them for baseless reasons in a clear attempt to manipulate her empathy to their advantage. They hoped she could convince me to halt the lawsuit. However, my aunt is no longer easily swayed by their tactics. Their past manipulations, especially involving family court, have lost their effect on her. True to form, she echoed my stance back to them, offering her sympathy, but firmly stating she would not intervene in their favor. She even went a step further, warning that any further harassment would not only cost them her sympathy but could lead to her reporting their incessant bothering to the authorities. Her stance was a significant show of support for me. For a while there was silence from their end, a brief respite until later that day. After failing to sway my aunt, my parents widened their net, reaching out to every family member they could, painting me as the aggressor in a legal battle they claimed was unfounded. Soon, my phone was flooded with messages echoing the same sentiment. The lack of originality in their approach was almost comical. It was apparent they had distributed a standard message for relatives to forward to me, hoping to overwhelm me into reconsideration. The identical wording in most messages only highlighted their desperate strategy, making it blatantly obvious that this was a coordinated effort by my parents to sway my decision through familial pressure. This clumsy attempt at manipulation did little more than affirm my resolve, making it clear they were willing to use any means, however transparent, to avoid facing the consequences of their actions. It's quite disheartening to witness the lengths my parents are going to in an attempt to rectify the situation now that they realize the gravity of their predicament. The legal proceedings have officially started, and we're currently on a break. I've just had lunch, and I'm taking this moment to share an update. Throughout this process, my parents have exhibited a level of hostility that's hard to ignore. Yet it's evident they're on the losing side of this battle. They're facing a reality where they might need to concede to our demands to avoid further legal complications. During the lunch break, the tension was palpable. My father's looks could kill, directed sharply at me, while my mother played the part of the distressed spouse, attempting to garner sympathy, a performance that failed to resonate with anyone present. Their actions couldn't disguise the truth. It was all for show. I cannot overstate the support I've received from my friends and business partners. Their solidarity has been a constant source of strength throughout these trying times. Just recently, one of my closest friends reassured me of his support, offering a listening ear for whatever I might need to unload emotionally. This gesture was a poignant reminder of the incredible support system I have in place. Despite the challenges presented by my family situation, I find myself profoundly thankful for the genuine connections I've cultivated outside of that dynamic. The love and support from my friends and my aunt have been invaluable, helping me navigate through this tumultuous period. Their presence in my life is a testament to the fact that family isn't just about blood relations, it's also about the people who stand by you when you need them the most. For this, I am truly grateful.